Now, the much-anticipated ANC Women's League's National Elective Conference has finally commenced on Friday. The conference has been postponed twice this year due to disputes and registration issues. The Women's League was placed under administration of a task team convened by Baleka Mbete since April of last year. That's following recommendations by Thandi Modise, who was appointed by the NEC to head a panel to evaluate the statute of the league ahead of the December National Conference. Thembeka Mchunu and Sisi Tolashe will go head-to-head for the presidential post, while former leader Bathibile Dlamini is tipped to contest the position. Well, is the structure still needed and relevant in the ruling party? To answer that and some other questions, political analyst and professor at the Center for Security, Peace and Conflict Resolution at the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University, Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast weighs in. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. Day one of the conference finally kicked in. I mean, it was slow and marred with several delays. The Women's League has now vowed to be more efficient in running their conference than other party structures. Given what we saw playing out at the much recent gathering of the ANC's youth wing, for instance, what's your take on this conference?
Well, my reading of the situation is that there are some men within the ANC behind the closed doors who are entrenching hegemony and patriarchy by using the Women's League as a vehicle in pursuit of their agenda. For instance, you remember how the Premier League co-opted some leaders of the Women's League, strategically so, and made them to conform to a particular agenda, and also assimilated them. But of course, that was a project gone wrong. I mean, that is just a case in point. And I'm saying this because, you know, under the circumstances of COVID-19, women were the mostly affected category. And even at the moment, they still bear the brunt. If you look at unemployment, it is sitting at, I think, 30%. And in the main, it affects women. If you look at the issue of gender-based violence, if you look at the issue of femicide. So those are the issues that the Women's League should be advocating for on behalf of women. But then the Women's League has been embroiled in the factional battles of the ANC instead of, you know, demanding for genuine transformation. And I can bet my bottom dollar, even after this conference, they're going to align themselves either to this or to that faction. But I think the structure as it stands, you know, in terms of our body politic, it is still needed because women, they face a lot of challenges.
You speak about being embroiled in factionalism, and we know that what we heard yesterday from the ANC Women's League National Task Team convener, Baleka Mbete, is her warning against factionalism, speaking about the effects of factionalism, saying that, of course, it has done a lot in terms of damaging relations between the Women's League and within the organization, yeah.
Of course, I mean, factionalism is at the heart of ANC politics. You know, some people say that factionalism is a good thing because it promotes a competition, but I disagree with that because I think, you know, factionalism, it breaks down the organization, and also the ANC needs to be united in relation to the upcoming general election. So the ANC needs all its leagues, you know, to be up to scratch. So they really need to do away with these petty differences. But at the heart of all these, you know, internal fights is the issue of access to resources within the context of the state. It's not about ideological issues. It's about laying your hands in the cookie jar.
Yeah. And of course, some questions have been asked about the relevance of the Women's League in 2023 when it comes to some of the goals that need to be achieved, and how is it or is it not advancing women and, of course, their rights and equal recognition within the South African space. What are your thoughts around the role at the moment?
I think, Paul, the past is still with us. Patriarchy as an ideological construct still embeds itself. I think, the history of women is the history of oppression. Women face a number of challenges of sexual harassment, this and that. So you need a vehicle that will demand for a change for the better, on behalf of women. Yeah. So in that regard, I think there's still a role for a women's league and other institutions that are advocating for the plight of women.
Yeah. Professor, the Women's League was disbanded last year. We know that its former president, Bathabile Dlamini, is again in the running for re-election. There's fierce lobbying continuing on the sidelines. What are her chances? And of course, given the work that she's been involved in throughout the years as a leader.
Look, I don't want to come across as if I'm taking sides, because I've got no interest in the, factional politics of the ANC. Suffice to say, my role is just to tease out, the complexities of the ruling party. My reading of the situation is that the ANC Women's League did not achieve anything substantive, covering the period where she was at the helm. I don't remember any program of action that was adopted by the Women's League, any strategic victory on behalf of women. Instead, she aligned herself to a particular faction. And, regardless of whether it was the Ramaphosa faction or this faction or that faction, I just think that the Women's League needs to transcend beyond factional battles, and demand for real a transformation.
Yeah. As you speak about factionalism, some supporters of CC Tolashe's presidential ambitions are now throwing a spanner in the works by backing KZN's Tembeka Mchunu. And Mchunu slate is believed to be made up of those who felt sidelined by the Tolashe core. Looking at those dynamics at play and also looking at who is looking to pursue their ambitions and also head up the Women's League, what do you make of the leadership that's put their hands up to say, throw me in?
Yeah, I think because the Ramaphosa faction has been entrenching its hegemony of late. If you look at the conference of the Youth League, the people who were elected in the main, they are aligned to that dominant faction. So I think they are going to exert their influence even on this particular conference. So any candidate that will emerge as a victor will be someone who will be aligned to the dominant faction, and that will enable them to continue entrenching dominance. So I suspect that the Ramaphosa faction, in the bigger scheme of things in the politics of the ANC, will continue entrenching its hegemony. There is no way they would allow someone who will be posing a threat to them in terms of advancing their agenda. And also, in the bigger scheme of things, of course, is what happens after Ramaphosa.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. Perhaps let's leave it there for now. Political analyst and professor at the Center for Security, Peace and Conflict Resolution at the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University, Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast.